Hey folks, in today's video I'm going to answer the question, what is the difference in noise level between a standard or conventional RV air conditioner and a whisper quiet RV air conditioner? Now, what is a whisper quiet RV air conditioner, you might ask? Well, for the purpose of today's video, we're going to call a whisper quiet RV air conditioner one that has dedicated dual return ducts. And you can see this rectangular grill up here in the ceiling and then this other one over my head. And so those are dedicated ducted returns that feed my main air conditioner here in the fifth wheel, compared to a more conventional air conditioner like this one up here, where the returns are built into the AC shroud. And as you probably know, but just for the sake of clarity, in an RV, the return duct, just like you've got here, is where the air gets sucked in. You can think of it like an air intake. It goes through then the ducts to the fan and then runs through the coils and becomes conditioned air, and then it gets spit out through the duct system again to these round ducts just like this one here. Now, more recently I have heard some folks online refer to more conventional air conditioners like this Coleman Mach up here as a whisper quiet air conditioner, and I'm not really sure what's going on with that, because I always thought in order to be considered a whisper quiet air conditioner that it needed to have dual dedicated returns like you're seeing up here above my head. My guess is that maybe Coleman Mach and other brands have made a lot of advancements working on making that fan noise, that air movement, a lot quieter. And so they're starting to kind of bring that marketing term into their product and call it a whisper quiet air conditioner, even though it's still not as quiet as a system that has, dual dedicated returns. And so that's the question we're going to be answering in today's video. How much quieter is a whisper quiet system with dual dedicated return vents compared to a conventional air conditioner where it just sucks the air in right through the shroud? Now, before we begin the experiment, let me just touch briefly on one other question, and that is, why is it such a big deal to know the difference in noise between a whisper quiet AC and a conventional RV AC, right? What's the big deal? Well, if you're like me, before I bought my current fifth wheel that I'm sitting in, the Jayco Pinnacle, I was cross-shopping some other brands, and some of those models did not have whisper quiet AC ducting with dedicated return grills, right? Some of them just had the standard Coleman Mach with the return built into the AC shroud. And naturally, it's a big purchase. You want to make the right decision. This is my fifth RV that I've owned, and none of the RVs before had the whisper quiet ducting. So for me, I just become accustomed to the noise level that RV air conditioners make. And my previous fifth wheel was a front living floor plan. And so you've got obviously the big front living room in the front, the elevated upper section of the fifth wheel, which means you're closer to the ceiling. And I can remember that every time the AC would kick on, it was a Coleman Mach AC, that you'd have to talk louder if you're having a conversation, or if you're watching TV, you would have to turn the volume up a little bit. So that's definitely a factor that I was thinking that, hey, if I can get that AC fan level quieter, not so noisy, that would definitely make the overall experience more pleasant, more enjoyable, right? And that was essentially my predicament. I think the big question is a whisper quiet air conditioner a must-have feature or a nice-to-have feature, right? And that's really a personal decision as you shop for RVs. But let's say you're shopping for one, you find a brand that you really like, it's got all the features except for a whisper quiet AC. Then you've got to decide, are you going to cross it off your list because it doesn't have the whisper quiet AC, or are you going to say, you know what, I can live without it, it's not that big of a deal? And so hopefully in today's video I'll give you some data points and some sound samples of the difference between the two so you can help make that decision for yourself. Now I'm going to complete the experiment here in my Jayco Pinnacle. This is the 2021 37 MDQS. And I did option it from the factory with a third AC. And so that's what you're looking at right here. This is from the factory. Jayco just drops it in like a conventional AC with the return built into the shroud, compared to the first and second ACs that have the dedicated return grills. So again, the first and second ACs have these dedicated return grills. The other one's in the bedroom, and I'll show you that one here in just a bit. Whereas the third AC has the return built into the shroud. However, they all are ducted into the round supplies that you're seeing throughout the RV. I figure since I've got both styles of RV air conditioners here in my fifth wheel, it's about as good as it gets to do a real world experiment and show the difference between the two. And to do that, I'm going to use my trusty, faithful Radio Shack dB meter. I'm going to position the tip at exactly 3 feet off the ceiling, and each time line it up in the center, either between the ducted returns or the center of the AC shroud. All right, so right now there's nothing else running in the RV except for the LED lights throughout. There's no fireplace running, there's no ceiling fans running. I want to make sure that when I use this dB meter that I'm only recording the noise level from the AC fan. And so you'll see as a baseline here, if I stop talking, that it's going to register low. And so that means it's under 50 decibels. This goes 60 minus 10. So 50 is the lowest that it can read in. So you can see it's dead quiet right now here in the RV. So let's go ahead and get the first AC running. And we're going to go over here to the BM Pro panel. Really nice panel. I like this a lot. I did a video on this a few weeks ago and I'll put a link up for that. But we'll go ahead and turn on the main AC. I've got the fan speed set to low, and typically for me when I'm running my AC, I want that fan speed on low so that the AC runs as long as possible to pull all that humidity out of the air. Now for transparency, you can see here we're just running the fan. It's too cold out today for me to turn on the AC compressor. Obviously when you turn that compressor on, you're going to get a little more noise, but it's a lower kind of a rumbling sound. You know, you're probably familiar with it. And I really don't think that noise is so much what you're hearing inside the RV. I really think it's the fan noise created by the blower there in your AC that's making all the noise, and that's really what we want to get at today. So in transparency, like I said, I'm just running the fan speed today in all the experiments. So again, we've got the main one turned on. This is the ducted with the dual return grills that are ducted, and I've got it set to low. So now let's hop over here, and I'm going to try to point the microphone. It's got a shotgun microphone here on the camera at these return vents to give you an idea. Hopefully this will come through in the video what it sounds like. All right, so hopefully you can hear what that sounds like. Now let me turn the camera around and I'll pull out the tape measure and the dB meter and we'll see what it registers at. So you can see I've got my tape measure out and it's centered up exactly between the two return ducts for the whisper quiet system. And we're gonna get our dB reading right here at 36 inches. That's about, I think, ear height for the average 6 foot tall person. So I'm gonna line up my dB meter. This is where the sensor is, right at 36 inches. And you can see it's right at about 65 decibels. So that's at 3 feet off the ceiling, centered up between the two whisper quiet ducts with the AC fan set to low. All right, so I prepped the tape measure over here on our second test position on the conventional AC, but let's go over here on the control panel. We're gonna turn off the fan on the first AC and then jump down here to the third AC. That's gonna be our conventional. We're going to turn it on again. You can see it's just the fan running and we are on the low speed again. So let me give you again some noise levels. Hopefully this will translate in the video. It's got a shotgun mic on the camera. All right, so that's what it sounds like with the fan running. Let me spin the camera around and we'll get the dB level. All right, so again, I've got my tape measure centered up on the return grill and we're gonna get our dB reading right at 36 inches. So it is reading, it seems right around 66. Once in a while it jumps to 67, but it seems to be staying more at 66. I'm really surprised actually, because remember on the whisper quiet we were reading in 65, so here it's only 1 decibel louder. I mean, I definitely can tell it's louder in this position. I just thought it would end up being louder on the dB scale. So what is the significance or the difference between the two test points, right? I mean, that's the question that we're trying to answer today. And as you probably know, the dB scale is logarithmic, and so it's not linear. And so in order to determine the difference between those two data points, we've got to do a logarithmic calculation. So I've got a calculator pulled up here, and I want to know how much louder the second test point is with the conventional AC compared to the first one, the whisper quiet. So I've got my 66 versus 65 plugged in there, and you can see it is 1.122 times louder. So we can say the conventional AC is 1.1 times louder than the whisper quiet with the dedicated returns ducted. Okay, so is a whisper quiet ducted system a must-have on your list? Now that you know that a conventional system is 1.1 times louder than a whisper quiet ducted system, is it a must-have on your list? Well, before you decide, I've got another test scenario that I think will be kind of interesting, and it has to do more with the different floor plans, right? So obviously here in my Pinnacle, we're in a rear living floor plan, but imagine if you've got a front living floor plan where you're on the upper level right here, where you're potentially closer to the AC shroud, to the noise level, right? Or maybe you've got a front kitchen floor plan, and so you're closer again. Does that noise level make a difference? You know, as the volume increases, do our ears perceive it as even louder because of the proximity, the closeness? All right, so what I'm thinking is let's head up here to the upper deck of the fifth wheel and get another dB level reading here in the front bedroom. I'm thinking we're potentially closer to the source of the noise, and maybe you're looking at a floor plan where you're going to be spending most of your time in the upper deck, your living space or your kitchen, and so you want to know how much of a difference does it make when you're a lot closer to the ceiling. Now I'm just over 6 foot tall, and you can see I've got about, probably 4 inches of head height to the ceiling. And here in the front bedroom, you can see we also do have the whisper quiet ducting on both sides. So we're gonna do the same thing, except this time I'm gonna do the dB level reading at 16 inches. So we're gonna do 16 inches in here, and then might as well go ahead and do it 16 inches at the other 2 points that we already did in the living space and just compare. All right, so we're back at the B Pro system, and you can see I've got the third AC off. That's our conventional standard AC, and then I've got our second AC. That's gonna be in the bedroom, but our main AC is also off. Just wanted to show you all that. We'll go ahead and turn on the fan for the second AC. It's still on that low speed, just like all the other ones. So we are good to go. Let's head up here and I'll give you a listen so you can hear what it sounds like without me talking. And again, we're closer up to the ceiling potentially. All right, so that kind of gives you an idea of what it sounds like just with the bare AC fan running there on the low speed. Now let me flip the camera around and we'll get our dB levels. And again, folks, I've got the tape measure centered up between the two return ducts, and we're gonna be shooting at 16 inches this time. So let me hold it as close as possible to 16 inches. And it looks like right at 67 decibels. So let's get another reading on the conventional system, again at 16 inches. Okay, so back to the B Pro system. We're gonna turn off the second AC up there in the bedroom. We're gonna go down here to the third AC, turn that one back on. That's our conventional AC. And you can see, of course, I've got the tape measure centered up again on the AC shroud. And this time we're gonna get a dB reading right at 16 inches. So I'm gonna have to really reach up there. And see, we're right at 16 inches. And it looks like 69 decibels is what we're getting when we're 16 inches off of the conventional. Okay, so let's do our logarithmic calculation again to determine the difference. So I want to know the difference between the conventional, which was 69 decibels, versus the 67 decibels on the whisper quiet. Again, those are at 16 inches apart from the return grill or the AC shroud. So we hit calculate and you can see 1.259. So we can say the conventional system is 1.25 times louder than the whisper quiet system at 16 inches away. So no surprise, right? The closer you get to the AC shroud or the return grills, naturally the louder the system is going to appear to the human ear. And so then the difference between these two systems gets pronounced even more, exaggerated even more here. So again, 1.25 times louder on the conventional system versus the whisper quiet. Now you might be tired of test points, but I thought of one more that I'm at least curious to take while I've got everything out, and that is another dB level here on the first whisper quiet system in the main living space, but this time at the 16-inch level like we've done on the conventional and up in the bedroom. And I'm just thinking, you know, if the room acoustics play a role in how loud something seems, then maybe this will be a more accurate comparison to our conventional system here that I just read in. So we've got the conventional system off. We've got the second up in the bedroom off. We're going to go ahead and turn on the main one here, the main whisper quiet system. Fan on low again. And then we'll get our dB meter out. And I'm going to put it right at 16. I've got to really stretch up there with my arms. So it's looking right at 66 decibels there. So just for comparison, 66 decibels versus the 69 decibels on the conventional system. So it's actually a little bit quieter here, which I kind of wondered, since this is a bigger room, that whisper quiet system seems even quieter in this larger space. So potentially we could say if this conventional AC was up in the bedroom, you know, it registered 69 decibels at 16 inches versus the 67 that the whisper quiet in the bedroom registered. But I'm just guessing if this system was in the bedroom, if y'all are tracking with me, it probably would be 1 decibel louder. So it might even be like 70 decibels at 16 inches compared to the 67 that we recorded. So let's just see for comparison if we did 70 on here versus 67 and then calculate, you can see it gets even bigger, so 1.4 times louder. So again, that's just an estimate. I don't know that to be necessarily true, but perhaps if there was a conventional AC system in the front bedroom where you're closer to the ceiling, where there's less, you know, floor to ceiling height, that potentially it could register louder compared to a whisper quiet system, further exaggerating, you know, the difference there. Well, I think I'm just about out of data points, but hopefully I've answered the question, how much noisier is a conventional RV air conditioner compared to a whisper quiet version with dedicated return ducts? Now, I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments below. Do you think a whisper quiet RV air conditioner with dedicated return ducts, is it a must-have for your next RV, or are you content with a more conventional RV system like one of these Coleman Mach systems that's already pretty quiet? Well, let me know in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching.